Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Mad Tinkerer Gaming. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about me first because the last video I put out was just a basic video testing out Filmora. I opened a very lackluster box of Ravnica Allegiant. I got to say it was pretty bad opening. Wish I could have taken that one back. It's my first video to put up here. But I think this is more the grand opening of the channel. I thought I would share a little bit about me, what I hope I can do with this channel. We'll go from there. My name's Travis. I've been gaming off and on for as far back as I can remember. Video gaming first, with Nintendos. Actually, my first one was like the Odyssey, which like a knockoff of the Atari. The Nintendo, and I've gone up through PlayStation, so I do like video gaming on consoles. I've played WoW for a long time, so I do know about PC gaming. My wife is more of a PC gamer, but everybody knows the big games out right now as far as card games and collectible card games, because they hold money, they have value to them, and people enjoy playing them. And the biggest one I think right now is Magic the Gathering. It came out in late 93, early 94, I believe. I don't think I started playing it until probably 95, 96. I was working at a Sonic. One of my friends got me introduced to the game. I started playing. Then I gave up the card game for a while. I joined the military in 1997, and I went overseas. While I was overseas, I met some friends, and we did White Wolf Gaming and D&D and Rifts. So that kind of gaming was really good. I enjoyed it. But it never was my true cup of tea. I wasn't as passionate about it as I was card gaming. I enjoyed being able to go out and meet other people and play and test my skill at making decks, or it was fun. When I came back from the military, I started working a third shift job in security. Sometimes to pass the time, which I'm probably not supposed to tell you all this, but to pass the time, we'd play cards. And one of my friends had picked up Yu-Gi-Oh at the time, and I started playing it, but it didn't quite settle with me very well. I mean, it was a good game. It was well thought out and plotted, but I didn't really enjoy it as much as I did Magic. And I found out Magic was still a thing. You could still purchase it. So I got back into it around the Mirrodin block era. And for the longest time, I'd get play sets of Mirrodin block and collect all that stuff from then all the way up. And in 2008, I went down to Dragon Con. And a lot of things didn't have a lot of value then. There wasn't a modern format. You had Type 2 and Extended, which is now your standard format and modern format. But Extended was just 4 sets back, and anything post 4 sets back was, not very viable in any tournaments, because all you had was Vintage Legacy, Extended, and Standard, or Type 2 at the time. So a lot of those cards didn't have a lot of value. And I sold a whole bunch of things then because I wanted to buy a copy of Avengers #1, and I got it signed by Stan Lee while I was down there. I loved comics too, so I mean, if you can't tell, I love comics. We like all kinds of comic movies, video games here. It's a big geek house. But when I got back into Magic, I played that for a while, and I kept it going. But when I found my wife, I found her by playing card games too. We were with a bunch of friends, and we met playing MTG. But she never really liked MTG. She always found that she would end up being in her gaming society mana flooded or mana screwed, as people call it. You either get too much mana or not enough mana to play what you want to play. And back then, she was getting mana flooded in a goblin deck or mana screwed in a goblin deck, and she just didn't like it very much. And then the 2-color decks started coming out, like Azorius and stuff like that, and it was just atrocious. But we found a game, I believe probably 3 or 4 years ago was when we first got into it, called Force of Will. And I've loved Force of Will since then. It's a very easy transition for Magic players to make. In my area, though, it's kind of dried up. It's hard to find the cards to play. So a bunch of my friends and I, we still play, but it's kind of an underground thing for us. We get together, we'll play tabletop games, and we test your skills just as tabletop players, because it's fun. It reminds me of what Magic originally was when I was playing it first. You would get in and you would build you a deck and just get 4 people sitting at your house playing cards, testing different decks that you all had built against each other and having fun. And that's what Force of Will was to me. And I highly recommend people who want to just try something different. I mean, I've gone to these local game stores, and their attendance is way down. I mean, way down. You'll go in for a Friday Night Magic even at my local game store, which is Paradise Games in Athens, Tennessee. I'll throw that out there as a little bit of a welcome. They are a great place to go to. By all means, please stop in and visit them. They're good people. They will assist you in any way they can to get what you want. But I would go down and the Friday Night Magic dried up. You have 8 people, the same 8 people that attend every day that are there at the shop. Just the same 8 kids or whatever, just playing. Or you'd show up on a Sunday and their commander decks would have 5 people there playing against each other. Same 5 decks over and over again. Nothing new to contribute to the community, and no new players coming in. And for the Force of Will guys that were there, we had a solid 8 or 10 man group, but life happens, People get jobs, people move away. So the scheduling conflict was really bad, and I would like to try to revitalize Force of Will in the community around here, but it can't be done by one person. It takes gamers that want to make a difference or just to try something different. So if you're interested in the game after I go through my little explanation and I open up this starter deck I've got for you, then go to your local game store and ask them to get you some starter decks. You have to have the starter decks right now, guys. Used to, you could buy a box and there'd be J rulers in those, but the company has gone to a different format now. The new Valhalla block, which is just the new current block that's come out, they didn't want people just buying the boxes and only looking for the J rulers, or complaining because, oh, I could never get this J ruler, so I was never competitive. Those were all kinds of problems. It was like, well, somebody got this J ruler and it was just so overpowered and I didn't like playing it. For starters, Force of Will is not like Magic in several aspects. It's not a conglomerate company. It's a single-owned Japanese company. It's ran by them. They don't have stockholders they have to answer to. They can do what they want with their game. And they've been doing that. Now, they've had their ups and downs, and that's one reason that it's not stocked up here a lot. They were doing great. They released the original Valhalla block in Japan only, and it was a huge success. And then they did the Grim cluster, and that came to America, and it was a huge success. The first 3 sets of that block, sorry, they call it a cluster. The first 3 sets of that cluster were amazing, and people bought them and sucked them up off the shelves like they were just amazing. It was a huge trend. It was like the number 3 or 4 game in the United States for a little while. And then it declined because they released a set called MOA. And I know what they were thinking. I get their train of thought, and it failed them. It failed them in the American company viewpoint over here. In Japan, it was great because, like people say, the Japanese like big, huge combos that do crazy things. But over here, we want consistent decks that build up on themselves, and you can play multiple things with them. We want an even flow metagame, not just one card that'll rip through everything or one ruler that will destroy everything. But when they released their 4th set in that cluster, it was called Millennium of Ages. It had no J rulers in the box, none at all. That was completely different for them. And the cards didn't really build off of previous J rulers. Their train of thought was they wanted to make cards that would be able to work with previous J rulers. But they didn't make anything specific. It was a very poorly designed set. And even they've acknowledged that. Their global liaison said that. And that they were never going to have another MOA set. And it's shown. Their research and development has done very well. They're doing all kinds of wonderful things in the gaming community right now. And when they did do their research and development, and they stay on top of the game, the research and development team does stay on top of the game. Later on, they did create an overpowered J ruler, and they didn't mean to. They just did. They were trying a new mechanic, and they didn't realize that it was way overpowered. It was a J ruler with no life on it. So when you activated it and it became a ruler, there was no way to get rid of it, no way to attack it, no way to destroy it. They didn't have anything printed at that time that could do that. That was called Reflect and Refrain. Well, they created Black Moonbeam as a response. They cut down the power levels. They tried to nerf it, but it was still an overpowered card, so finally they banned it. They do that. If they create something that's bad, they'll ban it. Every card game does, because they want to keep a meta normal. Then there was the infamous Booty Cat. And people are like, oh, it's an over-sexualized game. It's really not. It's not. It's an anime-style game, and the Booty Cat was a misprint. So it was one of those things where it wasn't supposed to actually exist, and it got misprinted in a print run of stuff, and they can't take it out of circulation. I mean, they took the boxes away and remade decent ones, but the infamous Booty Cat haunted them as well. So Reflect and MOA was the first bad thing, and then Reflect and Refrain came out, and that was pretty bad. It was overpowered, and I know a lot of people quit playing during the Reflect and Refrain era because they didn't want to go to a GP, and 8 out of 10 games they played were against a Reflect Refrain. It does not make people feel really good about a metagame when that happens. And even in recent times, when they were trying samples of different things, they created a J ruler that was overpowered. This came out in Time Spinning Witch. The J ruler was named Scheherazade. The test they were trying to do with each of these different rulers at the time was one would have like strength counters, which would boost its spells. One would have a weather pattern like rain or thunderstorm, which upped its powers and upped its creature plays. But Scheherazade, they gave her this thing called stories. And the stories gave her a 5-card sideboard outside of the regular sideboard. You have your 40-card deck minimum, you have 10 to 20 card stones, and then you had a 15-card sideboard that you could put into your deck at any point in time. And then for Scheherazade, you had 5 extra cards that were stories, and they were overpowered. And the stories did crazy things to affect the board, and then her cards, based off of the stories that she had played, did crazy things. So she was an overpowered ruler. They tried to tone her down. They got rid of one of the superpowered cards in her sideboard, but it still didn't stop her from doing what she was doing. So they finally just banned some of the other cards that have come out. Were probably like Severing Winds, a free counterspell. It ended up getting banned in the New Frontier format. I think it's still legal in Wanderer, but it's not as bad in Wanderer. It just dropped down to Wanderer. Or maybe it got banned in Wanderer, and then it just dropped out of New Frontier. So you can't play it in New Frontier, and now you can't play it in Wanderer. Otherworldly Journey was the other one that they kept in New Frontier, but I think it dropped down now. So either way, some of the counter spells were looked at with Scheherazade, and it just kind of did its thing. I've loved Force of Will since I've seen it. I'm going to open up one of the starter decks we've got, which I've got a blue one here, and I'll talk to you a little bit about it and what's currently going on in the game. With that, maybe I can get some people interested in picking the game back up. It has changed drastically. But like I was saying, I would go to the local game store I attend, and I would come in and there would be very little attendance for games. I mean, they still do pretty good in their D&D room. And they've got a new game out, Dragon Ball Z Super, and it's been doing well. It's brought a large crowd in for them. So they're having fun off of that. But I know the horror stories about Wizards of the Coast. I know how they're hurting LGSs. And I hate to say it, even though I love Magic the Gathering, it is a bane for new games. It hurts because it's so ingrained into most local game stores and the local gaming community that to get something new out, even if it's as good as or competitively as good as Magic the Gathering, in my opinion, it never takes off. You've had several really good games, Legend of the Five Rings, World of Warcraft, Marvel and DC Versus. These things have come and gone, all because trying to break into the market where you have Magic the Gathering, which has a stranglehold over the weekend gameplay at most local game stores, is very difficult. I'm not sure how else to word it, but I mean, I feel that way. And don't get me wrong, for those people who love Magic the Gathering, I mean, I grew up with it. I grew up playing it. I've enjoyed it. And I still play Magic the Gathering. I think the game is great. I think the stranglehold it has on the community is bad. And when you go in and you hear people complaining all the time about, well, I don't want to keep buying cards that turn into pretzels, or the card stock's really bad, or they've run out of ideas, they just keep repeating the same stuff on new cards over and over again, or they're just reprinting old cards over and over again at inflated price. It makes me wonder about the state of Magic the Gathering. I think that Wizards is actually trying to push more people to go to Arena than to play paper Magic, because in all honesty, digital media is the way of the future. But I don't like that you can't get new games into communities and have them last for a long period of time because Magic has such a stranglehold on the community. I think Force of Will is a great game. I love the card game, and I want to promote that game. That's why I'm doing Mad Tinker Gaming instead of Mad Tinker's MTG House or whatever. I want to do card gaming. So on this channel, what I wanted to talk to you about is that I want to focus on trading card games or collectible card games, however you want to refer to them, and maybe the online versions of them. So the biggest ones that I'm going to cover are like Magic the Gathering. I have Pokemon Online. I haven't really delved into Yu-Gi-Oh very much. I don't think I could pick that back up very easily. The game's progressed way beyond the point that I would ever remember. But I have Hearthstone as well, so you can do comparisons. And of course, I'm going to try to promote Force of Will over most of those games. I believe that it's a solid game, and I would like to see it back in the community. So if you go to the local LGS, ask them to get some of the starter decks, because like I said, you have to have them to play currently because of the new style that they're doing. The company has decided that instead of people having to dig through boxes to find J-rulers and maybe not getting the one you want, all of the J-rulers for this current cluster, which is the new Valhalla cluster, all of the J-rulers are in the starter decks. You get 2 for each color. So that's 10 J-rulers. And what they're attempting to do, which is a solid thought process to me, and I think most people can agree it is a solid thought process, and instead of hurting their game, playing by not putting J-rulers in the boxes like they did with MOA, but also not having the cards consistently help any current rulers they had in their starters, or whatever they had built up to that point, the cards in the new boxes actually play off of this stuff here. This blue deck I've got, or the blue starter deck that I'm going to open here and let you see some of the cards in the new set, there's stuff that builds really well off of this guy named Arthur. Now, the most powerful starter decks, I'm going to be honest, if you're looking to buy powerhouse starter decks instead of just fun stuff to play around with, the white starter deck with Brunhild is probably one of the #1 decks out there right now to build around. My favorite ones are the black starter decks, the Lucifer and the Lich, which I believe the Lich is the better ruler out of the set. The red ones, they're kind of lackluster. I think the dragon one will have potential as the cluster moves on, but right now Isis out of the 2 red ones is the better one. The green one and the blue ones have, just with the release of the newest set, Strangers of New Valhalla, have gotten some major boosts off of cards that help the Mimi tribe, which is the chibi cat looking person in the green starter decks. If you get it, the Mimi tribe gets a big boost out of that, and Arthur has gotten a huge boost out of this. There wasn't a very big boost for the Lich Lucifer decks and Strangers of New Valhalla. I mean, there are some good cards, but nothing huge in it as far as I know. And let's face it, they didn't need it. The Lich deck is amazing as it is. But Brunhild did get a card called Mistletoe, and it has a secret rare in it, like what Yu-Gi-Oh used to do, that is like a $60 or $70 card. Now, I know another reason a lot of people kind of dropped out of buying Force of Will. There was no aftermarket value at the time. Nothing. I mean, you'd have cards that were winning like their GP events that were like $3. When you talk to people from the community, which I haven't really, but I've watched a lot of people who are talking about the Force of Will community, and they get responses from like the global liaison. The company wanted to keep the card game cheap and easy for people to buy and afford to play, but it got to the point where I feel without an aftermarket value, people were just tired of spending $90 plus on a box. You know, you'd spend that much on a box of Magic, but you'd get that much in value at least out of the cards. People were buying a $100 box of Force of Will, and there would be $50 in value. So not what people really wanted to do. But now the cards are holding value, guys. Come back to the game. Some of the stuff that's in here, especially in the current New Frontier format, is very lucrative. And it's hard to find because they've kept the print run down. It's not like Magic that just prints and prints and prints and throws out mass amounts of products, and you can find stuff everywhere. It's very hard to find these cards because a lot of distributors quit carrying it after Well, your local game stores quit ordering. So go there and ask them to start ordering some Force of Will, that you want to try the game out at least. Ask them to get some of the starters for the new Valhalla block, because like I said, you need these starters. In the current medium, New Frontier is the normal, and you have stuff from Advent of the Demon King, which is really big, like John d'Arc. You have in the Time Spinning Witch, the J Rulers plus Lorite are really big, and then you have Winds of the Ominous Moon. You have the fluctuating cards like Lorite's Seven Disciples. You have the Zero that is in it, which is a flip card, and it's like I mean, they're expensive now. Like that Zero, a regular one's $20. Foil art one is $30. Some of the J rulers are $35 a piece. So if you're worried about marketing wise money value, there is money in the cards now. A lot of cards are $4 or $5 a piece. Some of the more expensive ones, like I mentioned, John d'Arc, Lorite's Seven Disciples, $10, $12, $15 cards. So if you're interested in it and you just kind of quit buying it because you thought you were going to lose money, it's lucrative. There's not a lot of it out there. They're only printing to order. So, you know, if they're not being ordered all over the place, the print runs are really small. They're making what they need to make to distribute. You're not getting an overflow of it. So the cards hold value. They're rare. In an economy where having thousands and thousands of cards out there determines the value of stuff, this card game is going to be one that it's stuck around. It's 5 or 6 years old. It's just certain areas it was splotchy. Nobody would continue to play it. But it is still a very viable game. So please, if you are out there and you just want to try something new for a little bit, if you're tired of buying cards from Magic that are bent, you know, when you take them out of the box, or you don't feel like Magic's being creative enough for you anymore, or you're just tired of playing the same stuff over and over again, please go to your local game store, ask them if they can get you some Force of Will. I believe it's a really good game. I think it's worthwhile, and the similarities between it and Magic make for an easy crossover as a gamer. When you have your J Ruler activated, he's out here on the field. He still has his Divinity of 10. Now the Divinity cards we have currently here, there are 5 of them to make a 5-card deck with him. There are Master Runes. The Master Rune is one that is assigned specifically for this ruler. It can't be played in any rune deck except with this ruler. Okay, that's one of the big things, and it's got a Divinity of 2. The Master Rune for this one is called Antimatter Cannon Excalibur. Play this card only if your J Ruler is Arthur or Arthur King of Machines. Your opponent separates all non-Magic Stone, non-J Ruler entities they control into 2 piles. Put all the entities in 1 pile on the bottom of their owner's deck in any order. I guess they get to keep the other one. So what happens, this one can only be played with Arthur. These other ones that are blue can be played in any blue deck because they're just runes. There are, well, this is a Master Rune as well. Okay, this one goes for Loki. So let me go ahead and open this up because I guess the decks really do play off of each other, so you can just have the Master Runes out here and I'll talk about it. The other one was a very nice, easy open. And this is your Loki. Loki's a Divinity 10, a Judgment of 3, just 2 blue and 1, with an Energize of 1 blue. You may pay 2 less for the awakening cost of spells you control. If you awaken a spell multiple times, you may pay 2 less for each awakening. Now, awakening in this would be if you play Magic like a kicker, to make a spell do something better. But here is the Master Rune for Loki. And Loki's Master Rune says, you play this card only if your J Ruler's Loki or Loki the Witch of Chaos. Remove a target resonator from the game. You gain life equal to its defense. Okay, now those are your Divinity cards. I'm going to go through here real quick and pull out all the other Divinities. Okay, now that should be all the Divinity possibilities. Now, when you're playing a Divinity spell, if it's a rune, it has to go into a rune deck. There are some in the actual card game itself that are a little different. They're called chant runes. Chant runes can go into your actual main deck as well as a spell. Okay, so if it says it's a chant rune, it can actually be in your deck instead of in your rune area as a spell, and it can be played in any deck. whatsoever. I believe as it stood, the last time I got to play this down at their shop, the colors of your rune had to match the color of your ruler. And I mean, that seems fair because most of them don't work very well with other things, except for your chant runes. Chant runes could be played in any color deck. I mean, if you had a black chant rune, you could put it in a white deck. If you had a white chant rune, you could put it in a blue deck. But it had to be a chant rune instead of a basic rune. And that's the ruling that we had at the time. They may have changed. I will check up on that and follow up with you on any further changes to that. Okay, yeah. No, here's another one. I knew there was 10 total. There we go. So there's all 10. So like I'd say, you have the ability to pick the master rune for each of these guys and then up to 4 additional runes to go with it. You don't have to use the master rune, but you can have up to 5. So let's say we put these with her. You would look at the divinity count, right? 2, 2, 2, 2, and a 3. That means at most they're just going to be able to play 4 of these because you can only use up to a divinity of 10. So if she casts this spell, that's cost her 2 divinity. If she casts this spell, it's cost her 2 divinity. You've cost this spell, it's cost you 3 divinities. So that's a total of 7. If you play this one, it's cost you up to 9 divinity. You don't have enough to cast the other spell. You have to have 2 divinity to play it. So you have to pick your divinity spells very carefully to match up with your ruler so that you can get the most out of your divinity play. You don't want to run a whole bunch of high-end divinities like divinity 3 spells in a deck because you'll never get to cast more than like 2 or 3 of them. And sometimes they're more helpful to do it the other way. But these cards are absolutely gorgeous. So this card is called Consume. And play this card if your ruler is Loki. Okay, so that's one of the main ones over here. My bad, that's one of the big ones. This one right here was one I was looking at earlier. Called Overflowing Knowledge. And it's 2 blue to draw 2 cards. I mean, it's very simple. These things are basic transition from Magic games. You have a rune, which would be like a sorcery. You have chants, which are sorceries. You have runes, which have this word called Quick Cast. Quick Cast would make it be an instant. Let's see if you can see it right there. There we go. Like this would be a Quick Cast. You could play it at instant speed. You have creatures in the game. Your creatures here have a attack and a defense of 400, 400. Sort of like in Magic the Gathering or anything, you have a defense that is a power and a toughness in Magic the Gathering. This creature would be a, for example, if you knocked it down to just basics, a 4 and a 4. And the only big difference is in this game, this formatted game, when you attack individually. You don't attack all at once. You send an attacker, they can declare a blocker, they can play spells, they can respond to it. The game itself is very well done. The cards are very beautiful. The artwork, in my opinion, is very gorgeous. Like if you're just looking at this right here, these 2 J rulers, the artwork on it is absolutely wonderful. And I hope people who see this will be able to get out and go to their local game store and actually ask the local game store to stock up on some of these cards. You're missing out. Look, the cards, they stay flat. They don't bend up. They don't do anything crazy. I've got cards that have been in my car that have been there for over a year. Cold, hot, it doesn't matter. I pulled one out the other day that was a foil even, like this one right here. And it was just barely bowed. It did not look like a Pringle. I'm talking, it looked almost like this. I would say if you put it in a sleeve, it would go back to perfectly flat. The cardstock from this medium, the cardstock from Force of Will, beautiful. The cards themselves, the design work, everything that's been put into this game by this company is amazing. And I hope people can come and try to take part in some gaming experiences or go down and ask for them to do a demo of Force of Will for you. Like I said, you've got a mechanized soldier, you've got a Percival, the Shining Knight, Scarecrow Guide, Witch's House, Donut Drone, Gawain, the Swift Knight. And, you know, the names of these, guess what? You're recognizing them now because If you know Arthurian legends, Gawain is a big guy. So was the Percival up here. Gretel of the Misty Woods, from Hansel and Gretel. Hansel of the Misty Woods. Loki's watchdog, Fenrir. The mechanical bishop. And then the stones, like in Magic the Gathering, you have stones that are of different colors and types. But look at these. These are gorgeous water stones. The blue water dragon on them. This is a blue stone. And you get in the decks, you get half of them are regular and half of them are shiny. Actually, more than half of these are shiny. Looks like you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 shiny ones and like 4 common ones. So you can have a foiled out stones right here, just in the starter box. And the cards themselves, like I said, they're absolutely gorgeous. I would highly recommend going out and picking up at least a starter. Like I said, this top ones right now are the white one, the black one, and I believe Arthur here with the brand new set is pretty big right now. I could be wrong. But originally when this came out, there were fairy tale things. So you had Alice in Wonderland, you had Dorothy from Oz, you had Grimm from Grimm's Fairy Tales, and you had Arthur and the Dark Arthurs and all the different characters, and they were recognizable. And now they've gone back to that. They're a more recognizable format, it seems to me. And I think people will enjoy this game a lot more. So please, if you're interested in this game, which I'm still going to keep promoting, I'm going to do some deck builds here soon, and we will try our best to make this into something bigger here. I would like to get my friends back into playing again if they're in this local area, and if not, we'll maybe get new players to come and try to test it out. Go to your local game store, see if they can pick you up some demo decks, see if they can buy some starters to get you started out, and just even play with it with your friends. If you play Magic, I'm not saying give up Magic. Magic is an old school game. People don't want to give it up because it's ingrained into them. But this is a very easy transition. It's 5 colors. You have white, blue, black, red, green, and they do have multicolored cards as well, like combo cards that are white and blue and black. They do make those, the same as with Magic. The cards play relatively the same, but you have a 40 card deck, minimum of 40, maximum of 60 card deck, which you build your deck around with your J ruler. You get a 5 card sideboard already in play for you to just be able to pick from that are runes that will have to match your ruler's color or be a master rune for him. And then you have a 10 to 20 card stone deck. And the way you would call a stone, let's say we're in the middle of a game, right? To call a stone, so you never end up getting mana screwed, which is an actual terminology, mana screwed, it happens. You rest your resonator and call you a stone. Well, he's not a stone. And you call you a stone. And then now you've got 1 stone. And then when it becomes your next turn, your resonator untaps or recovers in Force of Will. And then you rest him, call you another magic stone. And then these produce what we call will in this game. You tap these to produce will. Sorry, rest them to produce will. I'm so used to using the tap phrase when I was playing Magic. You rest them in Force of Will, and it will produce will of that color. Now, you cannot rest a ruler, call a stone, and then activate him. You cannot do that. You have to actually either call a stone or activate him. That's the only thing. That's the only big rule that I know of in the game that is a non. You can't change it. You have to do it that way. So I mean, it's very simple. You never really get mana screwed. You never get mana flooded. You get the amount of mana you want. You get to play the deck you design. And it's like a commander style variant for Magic the Gathering, but with a deck that you actually get to play instead of, oh my god, I don't get any lands. And I've enjoyed the game design and the mechanics of these games. I believe everybody should go out and at least get a starter deck of this and play with your friends. Like, go buy different starter decks. I'm very fond of the black starter deck myself. I would say try that one out first. It's very good. But if you can't get it, all of them are pretty much of an equal power level. They're not going to be super busted or broken right now. So I'm going to put these things back away. And hopefully people who are interested in this will be able to see it, go out If you play Magic the Gathering and you're just kind of tired of it for a little while and you just want to try something new, talk to your local game store, see if they can get you some Force of Will. Like I said, I'm going to be setting up a Patreon account for this, and I've found that I have like about 10 or 15 of these playmats, so I'm probably going to do giveaways, like I said. When I do box openings, like 4 or 5 random box opening cards go to my Patreons. I will set that up here in a little while. It's not about the money to make money. I mean, I hope people will want to support the channel so that I can do other things like box openings, or maybe use that money to buy a ticket to go to a cool event, like take my wife and my son to like Origins and get involved in seeing other games being played, so that I can come back and talk more to you about other games that are out there. But I hope everybody enjoyed this presentation and talking about who I am and what I want to do with this channel. But I am going to talk about, like I said, TCGs and CCG gamings and the electronic versions of them that are out there. And I hope people will pay attention and listen, and maybe it will get you out of your comfort zone of just sitting at home playing video games, and go out and play card games with some friends that you have. Or just buy some of the stuff from your local game stores or your card shops that are around the area and go home and play it with your friends. It's a fun game. I think people will enjoy it, and we'll go from there. I will talk more about the actual game in depth a little later, and have a good day.